right, I'm gonna put Toni on, which is first and which is second. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. There we go. And there we go. All right. I think I'm set now. All these technical things. So welcome everyone to another teacher talk for Rocky Mountain region. We have Toni Gerdes with us here today. I'm so excited. I was so excited. I got my needlepoint now today in the mail, and look on the back. Is this lovely?
Yeah.
Yes, Shenandoah Twist by Toni Gerdes. I was flipping over and I went, oh, how cool. So very nice. It looks pretty fun. I love the red color.
Yes, and you can do that in any colors you want. Of course, I did it in red. If you know me, I love red. So.
I couldn't tell with the glasses and the turtleneck, and I like red very well too. So cool. So just some kind of introductory questions to get us started. So how long have you been designing?
I've been designing probably for about 25 years. Yeah, I think that's about right.
And did you start teaching and designing at the same time, or did you start out designing or start out teaching, or?
Pretty much, I started out teaching little things for my guild, and then back when I lived in Kansas City. And then I also taught a few things for the local needlepoint shop. And, I started out teaching other people's stuff. And then I started thinking, well, I have this idea and exploring that. And pretty soon I was teaching my own pieces. And so that's how I started out, mostly teaching small things for the chapter. And then I just kept going.
So I'm curious, I moved here from Kansas City as well. Which chapter did you go to?
The Greater Kansas City Needlepoint Guild.
Okay.
I am a member of the EGA Guild there too, but funny thing, I didn't join that guild. It's the Santa Fe Guild, right?
The Santa Fe Trail.
Right. I'm a member of that now. I think I'm still a member. I was up until, unless I just didn't renew this year, but I wasn't a member there when I lived there because, I came up I started with ANG meetings, and the people there at that time, they've changed now, but at the time I joined, they didn't, you were either ANG or EGA. When I moved to Colorado, all the people I met out here said, oh, you got to belong to everything. So I did. And so then I went back and joined the EGA chapter back there because I've taught for that region several times. And I thought, well, I need to be a part of that too, because I'm originally from there.
Very cool. Yeah, we had a lot of fun in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And then, so you started out in ANG. Is that where you learned how to do needlepoint, or are you one of those people who learned from your mother or your grandmother? Or?
I learned from my mother. The first piece of needlework that I attempted, I had big ideas at the time. I saw this kit that was for a Christmas tree skirt. I mean, it was really big, and it was done in quick point, and I wanted to do it. So my mom said, sure. And that's what I started off with. And I put it aside, I think, after not too long, and didn't come back to it for a while because it really was way too big of a project. But I eventually finished it, and it's under my Christmas tree every year. It's kind of primitive, but it's a good remembrance of how I started out. And when I got that, I was probably just 10 or something. So
Oh,
And
wow.
then I did other types of stuff with my mother, sewing and hand embroidery, surface embroidery. But needlepoint was, I really loved it right from the start. I just shouldn't have started with such a big piece.
That's fun. So when did you you did your teacher certification through NAN versus ANG? Was there a reason for that?
Yeah. So, you know, I was trying to decide which certification program to do. Well, first of all, I should back up 1 second. My girlfriends knew that I was in a bad marriage, and they were convinced that I just needed to get a better job and then I could leave. Now, that's not really what I was thinking, but I went for my 50th birthday. I went to Callaway and with a whole bunch of Kansas City people, and we were having such a good time. And after class one day, my girlfriends that I was there with said, "You have an appointment with Kayla Tyler at 5:30 today."
Oh,
And I was like, "What? I don't even know her." "Well, she's the director of teacher certification for NAN, and you need to meet with her." And so, I did what I was told and I went and met with her. And she told me all about NAN's teacher certification program. And, I didn't join up right away. I just sort of thought, well, that sounds interesting. Um, and I started thinking about it and I thought, well, I wonder if I should do NAN or if I should look into EGA's program or ANG's program or what I should do. And I started asking people, and I ended up asking Carol Lake because she was a good friend of mine, or is a good friend of mine. And she happened to be the head of the teacher certification program at that time. And she said, really, Toni, you don't have a lot of experience. You've been teaching locally, but that the EGA program was at that time was more geared towards people that had already been teaching a lot more. It was more of a, almost like a test to test your knowledge. They weren't going to teach you stuff. And so she said, and she didn't really recommend ANGs. She said, really, for your particular circumstance, I think the one you'll get the most benefit out of is NAN. So the combination of meeting with Kayla and talking to Carol Lake, I joined the teacher certification program through NAN.
okay. Very cool. And so
And
now,
now I'm the director of education for NAN. So I really do believe in it. And I think A&G has a good program. I think EGA's certification is an excellent program, but I think I learned what I needed to learn the most from going through the NAN program, because they really concentrate on how you're going to be a better teacher. And they also encourage you to do a lot of design education, color education, but they're really concentrating on how to make you the best teacher.
okay. How many students do you have going through your certification at NAN at any point in time?
Wow, it really varies a lot. When I started out, I was the only person that started that year. But sometimes we've had 10 to 15. It just kind of depends on where people are. And you can start, it's a 3-year program, and you can start any year and you just do the 3-year cycle. You might start with year 2 and get year 1 last, but you can start at any time. So I'm not sure how many we have right this second, but because I'm the director of education, not the director of teacher certification, but
Okay.
but I think we have probably around 10 right now.
Okay. Very cool. So what's your favorite style to design? You've got, like the Shenandoah that's on the back of the needlepoint now, and the clipped kimono that I'm working on downstairs. And,
I go all over the place. I know I mean, I do have the artist series, the artist kimono series, and those are all based on famous artists or designers. But if you look at my work, and I can share, um, I I'm all over the place. I have a series on moon landscapes that include fabric in the design, the use of fabric applique. I have a new series that's just starting this year on, it's a patchwork animal series. And I can share some of these pictures here in a minute.
Okay.
Um, but then I like geometrics. I like landscapes. I like my kimonos. I was just, before I got on here tonight, I was working on what I'm going to propose for 2022 seminars. And again, it ranges from, three-dimensional candles to more patchwork animals to Little Christmas. So, and I love Native American things too. So I can show you a bunch of different things. That's probably more fun than just listening to me, but go ahead with your other questions.
Well, it's always interesting to hear what people do and how they do it. So when you start with a design, do you think about it in your head and then draw it out? Do you use a computer diagram to chart it out? Do you stitch it first and then diagram it? What's your process for coming up with an idea and getting it into a class?
Well, I have a lot of ideas, and I usually start by, sometimes it's a name, sometimes it's, a name just comes to me. Like, that's how Under a Copper Moon started. I didn't have any design in mind. I just heard the fact that we were going to have a lunar eclipse soon. This has been several years ago. And that sometimes it's called a copper moon. And I had this copper foil in my stash. And I thought, ooh, that'd be cool to name something Under a Copper Moon. I wonder what I'm going to do. And so sometimes it's just a word or something that triggers it. But sometimes it's more of a concrete idea than that. And I usually start with some form of a sketch. Sometimes, I guess this year I was channeling Jennifer Riepenberg because I was sketching on little Post-it notes. And I always tease her that she draws on the teensiest little pieces of paper when she gets an idea. I was using whatever size this is, 2x2s, but sometimes it's on a big 8x10 piece of paper. But anyway, I start with a sketch. And once I've refined the sketch to where it's not just an idea, it's really a drawing, then I'll do a color rendering next, because this is the process that they taught us at NAN. I used to just get a piece of canvas and start stitching, but we had to go through this process at NAN, and it really helped me make, didn't have to undo as many things if I go through the process.
Okay.
So I usually do a sketch, then a color rendering. I don't do quite the whole schematic that we had to do for NAN, but I'll jot down some ideas on stitches and threads that I want to use. Now that'll change a lot as I go. But once I've got to that point, then I'll usually cut a piece of canvas a little bigger than I think I'm going to need, just in case. And then I'll start putting those ideas to canvas. And it does change a lot as I stitch. Because, one thread just doesn't work like you think it's going to, or a stitch doesn't, maybe it's bigger than you need for the area, or just not as much texture as you need or something. So the stitches and the threads can change a lot. I usually gather as many threads up as I can that are in the color palette that I have chosen to use. So I have a lot available. My stash, as I know all of you too have a lot of stash, but it's really been a blessing for me, this past year to have a large stash, because you just can't run to the store. And I can never run to the store because I live 2.5 hours from a store, but it's been great to have that. I just have to always check and make sure that the thread hasn't been discontinued before I go too far with it. anyway, and then while I'm designing, once I start stitching, I take extensive notes. I use graph paper to graph out any stitches I do, and I write a lot of notes. I tried to talk myself into going ahead and doing the computer graphics as I design. I thought then, then there wouldn't be this big week where I'm writing an instruction booklet, but that didn't really work for me. I think it's two sides of your brain. The designing side is one side. And I mean, I love doing instruction booklets. I like the graphing, I like the writing, but they're two parts of my brain and they don't work together because I can't seem to do it as I go. So I do a lot of notes so that I don't forget what I did. And then later, I'll spend usually around a week of writing and diagramming on the computer to get a set of instructions.
Okay. Quite a process.
It works.
Hey, if it works, it works.
Yep.
So, okay. Do you want to share your screen and show us some things?
Sure. Let's see. What would you like to see? Anybody have a thing they're really wanting to see first?
Might need to come off mute and bring it up or ask.
Okay. I can do it.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to share your screen and I'll start with my patchwork animals because I have one that I'm getting ready to pilot and one that is only a drawing right now. I mean, I've started stitching them, but there's not enough stitching done yet. Anyway, because I'm excited about this new series.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Patchwork animals. So some of you may have already seen this, but this little guy is it started out he was just going to be called Patchwork Elephant because, hang on, I'll get it to come up here. Here we go. So he was just going to be called Patchwork Elephant. But I had so much fun doing him and I've had very good reception to him that everybody I've talked to said he had to have a name. So of course, everybody thought it should be a girl's name since it's primarily in pinks. But to me, he is Elliot the elephant, and he can wear pink if he wants. It's entirely fine with me. Anyway, I'm going to be piloting virtually and teaching him at EGA in Chicago, hopefully.
Are we supposed to be seeing a big picture of him?
Yes.
Because I'm still on
No.
your file.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna.
Sometimes.
Oh, I know what I did.
Yeah, sometimes Zoom has trouble.
Hang on just 1 second. I just, the brain doesn't always, and it's really working slow tonight, but we're going to start fresh here. I'm going to get him up and you're going to see a big one of him in 1 minute. I don't know if it's because we have a lot of people on here or if it's because low internet tonight, which I don't think I do. I have lots of bars, so, but I will get it. You just hang on with me for 1 second. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. Yep.
Oh, there. Can you see it now?
No, I just have a black screen.
Okay, hold on. Really acting weird right this second. My little spinner's just going round and round for some reason.
I know sometimes Zoom has an issue if whatever you're trying to share isn't open when you start to screen share.
Yeah, no, I've got it. I had that open and I should be having a problem, but my screen is telling me that my Zoom meeting is not responding. So I'm going to get
Oh,
out and get right back in.
okay.
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 I'll be right back.
All right. Stand by. We're undergoing technical difficulties.
Okay. I'm back.
Okay.
Let's try that one more time.
Okay.
How about now?
Yeah.
Yay!
Yes.
Yay. Oh, all right. So anyway, his name is Elliot, and he's Elliot the Patchwork Elephant. And he's really been fun. The background is a white on white darning pattern that is hard to see on the screen, but it's really kind of pretty in person. While you're looking at that, I'm going to get my next one up that I want to share with you because the sequel to Patchwork to Elliot is Gertrude the Giraffe. And
I'm pretty excited about Elliot because I got registered for your class in Chicago.
oh, yay.
Yay!
So Elliot, so the next one is going to be Gertrude, the giraffe, and she doesn't want to pop up, but because it's because of operator error, I can show you a picture of her anyway, because I was just working on her. She'll be in process. So this is the, let me stop share because I'm going to hold this in front of the camera.
Okay.
The line drawing, this is the color rendering.
Oh, cool. Is it just going to be her head?
Just her
Just
head.
the whole body? Okay.
Yeah. So she's going to have she's going to be a female because I don't know if you can see it, but she has eyelashes. So she's definitely a female. And I don't know why they just speak to me that way, but then I have after that, my next one's going to be a lion. And it's just going to be the full mane and the face.
Okay.
So that's my newest series. But let's look at the kimono series because that's the one that most people know me for. And that series, I'll bring up some of those. So the very first artist series in the artist series, it's not my first kimono, it was just the first in the artist series, was the Wright kimono based on Frank Lloyd Wright's work. And that basically was inspired because I knew I was going to Chicago to teach that year. So I chose to design something with Frank Lloyd Wright, a Frank Lloyd Wright motif, if you will. So this was based on two of his windows that he has. One is in the Arizona Biltmore in at the Arizona Biltmore, but the other one is he has some windows at the Clooney Theater, and they have, and I can't remember where the Clooney is right this second. Oh well, they have all these round circles in them, and so I combined those two ideas to come up with my first artist kimono.
Very cool. I like Frank Lloyd Wright.
Of course, the latest in that series, the most recent one, is Starry Starry Night kimono, which I will be piloting later this month. And that one, is going to be taught at ANG this year in Kansas City. And I'll bring that one up.
Does your framing of your kimonos, Toni?
All of my kimonos are, there's Starry Starry Night kimono, are all of my artist series kimonos have been finished as flat back ornaments and then mounted on a covered mat board and framed at Frame It in Littleton.
Okay.
So I love doing them this way because it gives a lot of dimension to the pieces. You see the shading, you can see some of the shading in this piece.
Yeah. Are those gold beads on that one, or is it?
There are no beads on this. No,
Okay.
but the wind, the swirls for the wind were created using painter's thread. The color is Van Gogh. So that was kind of fun to do that. In my Klimt kimono, I used some of the painter's thread that are the color is Klimt. Now, I haven't done that in all the kimonos, but it is kind of fun when that works out.
Cool.
Are those that look like beads, are they just basket weave?
So are you, Carolyn, are you talking about the swirls or
Yeah,
what?
these.
Huh?
The wind.
The wind?
Yeah.
No, those are actually Smyrna stitches done with number 8 braid metallic. That's an overdyed thread. And they're little Smyrna stitches that go along a line to form that swirl.
Oh, interesting. Thank you.
Uh-huh. What else would someone like to see?
I'd like to see the rest of your artist series.
Okay. So the second in the artist series is Macintosh Rose Kimono, based on Charles Rennie Mackintosh's work. And Charles Rennie Mackintosh was a Scottish designer. He did everything, really. He designed buildings, he designed fabric, he designed windows. This piece, and you're seeing it now, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
This piece is trying to get the feel of, he was known for a Macintosh rose. They called it this very Art Nouveau looking rose that he put in some of his motifs. And this kimono is celebrating that, but it also is trying to capture the feel of his windows that he created. So in this design, I wanted to explore what you could do to get the feeling of transparency, like glass, in the background. So the column on the far right on your screen, in other words, kind of behind the rose and down the kimono underneath the rose, is done with a material called wire lace. It's also sold in needlepoint shops under the name Wonder Ribbon. Some of you have probably used that. In the beading world, it's known as wire lace. In the needlepoint world, or stitching world, it's known as Wonder Ribbon. And it comes in different widths. And this happens to be a 12 millimeter width. But when you stretch it, you can stretch it out. This is stretched out about 1.5 inches or more, even a little more than that. And it's a tubular mesh that beaders use to stuff beads in and then design like necklaces and bracelets. I used it here to create the feeling of a window. And I actually ended up stretching it by putting balloon sticks up inside the tube and stretching them out, and then laying that mesh on the kimono and applying it to the canvas. And then the other columns of glass that you see in this kimono are done just with different stitches that give the feeling of transparency by the use of accentuate for the thread and open stitches for the stitch selection. And then along with that, because I spend a lot of time talking about how to create transparency in your work, and when we do this piece, the little rose buds that you see in the in the kimono, the centers of each of those rosebuds are stretched and applique flare there. And now the flare only stretches out a little tiny bit, but you applique it to the canvas and then do oval jessicas around that with silk thread to create these little buds that give dimension and that transparent center.
Very cool.
So then the third kimono in that series was the one that some of you are working on. Anyway, Trudy is, which is the Klimt kimono. And that kimono was, of course, based on Gustav Klimt's designs, several of his designs kind of put into one kimono. And so several of his paintings included the use of these little rectangular areas, like the kiss. A Woman in Gold was the name of the movie that was based on one of his paintings. And then also he had a big painting that was based on a tree of life motif. So combining both of those ideas into one. And this was the one that I did use some of the painter's thread. I used the painter's thread GIMP to do the curlicues for the trees. And then I used
Ribbon.
the ribbon. Yeah, I couldn't remember what it was for a minute. The ribbon that's also in the painter's thread line that's called Klimt to do some of the other stitching. So that was a lot. This was a lot of fun. And also we colored in the background behind the curlicues in the tree with a Copic marker before we started stitching. So there were several, different things in this. And all those little curlicues are couched down with a single strand of a Versoix Soie d'Alger silk. So that's a little tedious. It was a little tedious for me, but then the rectangles make up for it because they're a lot of fun to do.
I'm having a lot of fun stitching on it.
Good. And then the fourth kimono in the series, I think that's where I am in the numbers, is the O'Keeffe kimono based on Georgia O'Keeffe's work. And this one, I just love this one myself. Because there's a couple of reasons. Let me bring it up and then I'll tell you my thoughts here. So when I decided to do this one, I thought, I've never done any type of realistic landscape. And this is still not completely realistic because we're combining up at the top, you're looking at a distance at the mountains, and in the foreground, you're looking up close at a poppy. But I travel down to New Mexico quite a bit. I have friends in Santa Fe and Albuquerque, and some of them are on this Zoom meeting. So when I was down in Santa Fe teaching one time, I decided to drive back home and visit some of the places where Georgia O'Keeffe had been. And I really wanted to see this mountain that I had read about her painting over and over again, which is Paternal Mountain. And that's what you see depicted at the top of this piece. And I love the quote that she said about this mountain. She said, "I thought if I painted it often enough, God would give it to me." And I saw the mountain. Of course, it wasn't this color. It was in shadow at the time of day I went through there, but it does have the very much of a plateau feeling at the top, just like the top of the collar of the kimono. So I thought it would fit in there perfectly. And the color scheme for the mountain is really based on Georgia's feeling of her painting. She painted this mountain in these colors where you see the different light and shadow that plays on the mountains and play that up a little bit with these more bold colors. And then the Chama River runs through that area of New Mexico, so that the river comes. I took some artistic license about where the river runs, but that's in the middle of, or in the, at the top of the piece, right under the mountains. And then her poppy paintings always intrigued me, and I love red. And I thought the red went well with the adobe colors in the mountains. So, and also here in Buena Vista, where I live in Colorado, the knit shop in town has a whole uh, plot of these poppies in front of it that bloom every year. And I had taken a lot of photos of those poppies. And so I wanted to play with the shading in the poppy. And when I did the flower, I really wanted to figure out a way to do shading without doing long and short, because a lot of people don't like to do long and short. Some of you love it, but a lot of people don't. So I found kind of a combination of unique stitches that you could shade with, and the stitch itself and the use of which threads you, how you blend the threads in your needle to do the stitches, create the shading without doing long and short. And so then that was the fourth. The fifth is the new one, Starry Starry Night. And I haven't designed a sixth one yet, but I'm playing around with some ideas of what artist I might be inspired by for the sixth one.
Okay. Very cool.
So the other series I've been playing around with is started out with Under a Copper Moon. And let's bring the moon series up here. So this was the first one, Under a Copper Moon. And again, this truly started, I was just listening to some kind of a podcast or radio broadcast, I don't remember. And they were just talking about the lunar eclipse that was coming up, and that sometimes people called this a copper moon. And I had this batik fabric in my stash, and somehow I got those two things together, the use of copper for the moon and the batik fabric for the landscape to depict a southwestern feel landscape. And that's how this piece developed. And it was really fun to do. And what's really fun is seeing all the different ways my students have interpreted this, because everybody gets the same fabric, but they cut different parts of it. They emphasize different parts of it. Some people's fabric emphasizes the purple colorations in the fabric. You know, I give them a big enough piece, they can play around with it. And when we're in an in-person class, I bring extra fabric if they want to trade out their piece of fabric for one that has more green, or one that has more rust, or one that has more purple. That's something they get to choose. And then how they cut it, they can shape their mountain differently than I did. And then the moon, I teach the technique of applying hot copper foil to canvas and then doing canvas applique to, that's how my piece was done. But then some of my students have come up with all different other ways of doing their moon. I think I saw that Carolyn Sherman was on this Zoom. Now, Carolyn came up with one of the best ideas. She took a piece of rust colored ultra suede and used the copper foiling on top of that, kind of not to completely cover it. And then she appliqued the ultra suede onto the canvas. One lady found a button that looked like a copper moon and put it on there. So it's really fun to see all the different ways that can be interpreted. I love when my students take the beginning idea and then run with it.
How did they get the edge of the fabric so it doesn't like ravel?
So the fabric is applied to the canvas by, well, first of all, there's a wool felt, a thin layer of wool felt underneath that is applied with fusible web material. And then the fabric is applied with that same technique. So it's a matter, you actually fuse the fabric to the canvas. Now, that's actually enough. I mean, if you have a nice neat edge when you start, that's all you need to do. Along the curved edge of the mountain, that's really all that's holding that on there is the fusible web, and it doesn't unravel because you have the fusible product right up to the edges of the fabric. Now, along the border on the left and the border at the bottom, you are actually, the fabric is into the border and it's stitched through the fabric and through your canvas, which what I do is I draw the lines on the back of the canvas also, so you can see, you know, the line on the back of the canvas. There's a lot of flipping back and forth to get those stitches right where you want them. So it's secured on the border sides with some stitching also, but along the curved edge of the mountain, it's occasionally caught in some of the stitches, but mostly it's just on there by fusing it. I did this piece at least 3 years ago, and it hasn't raveled. And I'm pretty rough on my pieces in that I travel with them. So you don't, that isn't really a problem. The next one in the moon series was Once in a Blue Moon, and this was new in 2020. I was supposed to teach it live, and I, of course, couldn't, but I did teach it virtually, and it was really pretty successful virtually. I had a lot of people in my class, and I've seen a lot of people finish it, and I'm bringing it up. I think I'm bringing it up. Come on. Here it comes. Okay. So, come on. Well, pause for 1 second here.
It looks like it's thinking.
Yeah, I'm going to do a new share because okay. Can you see me?
I can see you. You're a little frozen.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, I'm having some technical difficulties.
Oh, I can't hear you now, Toni. Can you hear me? I still can't hear you.
I think she's been dropped.
Well, I see her down in another window.
Oh, yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I can see you, Toni, but I can't hear you. Oh, I think she's trying again. I just lost her. Let's wait for our technical difficulties to resolve themselves. Is that one of your?
How about now?
Yes, now I can hear you and see you.
Oh, good. And I'll see if I can do what I wanted to do to begin with. All right, can you see Once in a Blue Moon?
It's,
No. Oh,
yeah,
there it is.
there it is.
All
Oh,
right. So this is the second in the series, Once in a Blue Moon, and this piece uses another piece of batik fabric for the ocean, and it uses a piece of ultra suede that's been colored with colored pencils to shade it a little bit for the moon. And then the foam for the ocean is done with unraveled flare. You know how when we're stitching with flare in the end, your cut end, your tail that goes to the eye of your needle starts to unravel, and you're thinking, oh darn, why does I hate this that it keeps unraveling. Well, here we take the flare and we intentionally unravel a whole bunch of it until we have a whole bunch of fluff, and then we just couch it on for the ocean foam.
very cool.
So I had a lot of fun doing that. And it wasn't the first time I'd used that. It was the first time I'd used it in a piece for myself. But a friend of mine was stitching a beer mug for her son because he had finished a pub in his basement, and she was stitching in this mug of beer. And she goes, I don't know what we're going to do to get the foam on the beer. And so I said, I think we should try unraveling flare. So we did, and it created this wonderful beer foam on her piece. So when I was doing this piece, I knew what I was going to do for the foam first, even before I knew how all the bands were going to come together. So I'm working on a new piece for in the Moon series, and people keep giving me names to try. I think the next one's going to be By the Light of the Silvery Moon, and it'll be a winter scene, kind of wintry looking. But then another friend of mine read the title of a new novel that she found somewhere, and she said, oh, you've got to do a piece called Mermaid Moon. So I've got names. Now I just have to design the piece to go with them.
Very cool.
Oh, and someone else said that I don't know if this is true, but she said she thought there was a song called Under a Miami Moon or something like that. So I have to look into that. So, but it's been fun.
It's Moon over Miami.
Moon over Miami. Thank you. Thank you, Marcia.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so so sometimes it's the title of a song that just gets you inspired. So you never know. And she hadn't even read the book, The Mermaid Moon. She just thought that sounded like a neat title for one of my pieces. So she was anxious to call me up and tell me that. So I do have an idea for that one, but I haven't started. I haven't even drawn that, but I have an idea. So we'll see.
Cool. Are there any other new pieces that you're working on, or?
Well, some of you have seen my firecracker pieces. I'll bring those up, and then I'll tell you what the new idea is for that.
Okay.
Let me see here, firecrackers. Well, we'll see.
I can see the top of them.
Hang on. They didn't want to resize for me, but we're going to make them. There we go. So some of you know about my firecrackers, and they were really fun to do. And so one of my new pieces, I haven't started stitching it yet. I just barely have a sketch, but it's going to be called Golden Candles. And the candles are going to be they're going to be the candles that you see that are more like 3 inches in diameter. And one's going to be very short, and there'll be 3. And they're all going to be in golds and whites. And they are going to have an indentation built into the finishing of the top so that a tea light can fit into them.
Oh.
So they'll actually be working candles, with batteries, not flame. And they also are going to, I have these beautiful filigree pieces that are brass, and so they're gold colored, that are going to be used for an embellishment on at least one of the candles. I haven't decided if it's going to be one or all three, but it's another series of similar shape, but they'll be shorter and fatter than the firecrackers.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Are you going to propose that to both EGA and ANG, or?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
And then the other, this year I did the little one-day class for ANG called Ho Ho Ho. Some of you have seen that. And I've been selling these little stitching buttons. I think I did for one of the Denver chapters. A long time ago, I did a chapter program where we did these stitching buttons, but I'd never put them in any of my designs. So for 2021, I'll be teaching this for ANG in Kansas City as a one-day class. And the little O's are done with my stitching buttons, which have 64 holes. And so you can do stitches in the buttons themselves. And then then they're on the canvas forming the O's for the ho, ho, ho. So this piece was really fun. And so I decided I would do one more, because after this past year and all the problems we've had in the world, especially with the pandemic, I thought one of the things we needed was more hope. So I'm going to do the word hope with one of my stitching buttons for the O. And then it's going to concentrate on, it's going to be the word itself won't be too big, but I want to concentrate on a series of borders so that people can learn some new borders that they could possibly use in other pieces. So I'm going to do another new piece I'm working on.
Very cool.
Is that a fabric covered frame?
No, that is a frame from Frame It in Littleton, and it's covered in glitter.
Very cool.
Yeah, it looks like Dorothy's ruby red slippers. But it's fun.
It would be fun.
Let's see. That's about all new. I mean, I have a few more new ideas, but I haven't even developed them enough to share yet. So, but I'm working on things. I mean, I never have trouble coming up with the ideas. It's the difficulty comes in finding the time to get everything done I want to do. I would say that's the hardest thing. So, does anybody have any other questions?
I do.
All right. Yes, Marge.
Yeah. Tony, how long does it take you to actually go from concept to a design? Because you have to be planning 2 years out, right? So like, are you planning for 23 and 2024 right now? So how long does it take you to do these things?
No, I am basically right now working on my ideas for 2022. They're pretty close to being finished, but I mean, I don't mean finished stitching. I mean finished drawing, because proposals are due later this month for both ANG and EGA for 2022. Right. So I will propose, most of my pieces are proposed as color renderings with a design schematic plan attached to it. With it won't be stitched when I propose it. If it's picked up, then I'll stitch it. Now, this year I did start stitching the giraffe before I was picked up, because I don't know if it's going to be picked up. But most of the time I don't start stitching a piece until it's accepted for a seminar. Now that doesn't mean I won't ever stitch it up, but I like from now until June, I'll probably be stitching on the pieces that have to be on display
Right.
at the seminars later this year. And then they'll be piloted sometime after that, and then taught in 2022.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so I was surprised that you do a color rendering. Do you paint it? Well, how do you do that? Is it?
I usually use colored pencils.
Oh, cool.
That's what I like to draw with. I'm not. I don't feel like I'm the best drawing person in the world, but I think I can get across the colors that I want to use in a piece the best with colored pencils for me. I mean, if you're Jennifer Riefenberg, you just get out your paints and paint the whole thing. But I usually do the drawing first and get all the detail I want in it to where I can erase a lot. And then when I get the form that I really want it to take, then I color it in with colored pencils. Now, sometimes I use a lot of shading, sometimes I don't, depends on what I'm trying to get across. But I use colored pencils for my color renderings.
Very cool. So I noticed that you were one of the teachers that embraced technology early on. I think I walked into one of your classes and you had the Elmo and stuff. Has that helped you now with all these Zoom classes and stuff? Have you done some
Yes.
Zoom classes?
Yes, I have. In fact, I've had more difficulty tonight than I normally have.
Yeah. I know that always happens.
Tonight. Right? I think it's the internet tonight. It's not the other technology, but and that's beyond our control sometimes. But yes, I've been using an Elmo in my class for. I do think I was the first needlework teacher to use it. I went to teach in College Station, Texas, quite a few years ago, and I walked in and they said, "Hi, we have you all set up here. Do you want to use the whiteboard or do you want to use the Elmo?" And I swear to you, all I could think of was Elmo from Sesame. I thought, how am I going to use Elmo? I don't know what they're talking about. And I said, I said, "Oh, that's okay. I'm used to a whiteboard. That'll be fine." And I said, "No problem, just the whiteboard will be fine." And they said, "Oh, but the Elmo's so cool." And it's like, okay, I give up. I don't know what an Elmo is. So they said, "Oh, we'll show you. We have it all ready for you." So I said, okay. So I loved it because the reason I like the Elmo so much, it's basically just a camera, but the feature I like most about the Elmo is that I can put my charts right under that camera and you can see them. But if I want to draw something additional on there or highlight something that I want you to see, I can draw right on there and it also flips it for me. In other words, it's upright to me, but it's also upright to you.
Yeah.
And so that's what I love about the Elmo. However, since I've been doing some virtual classes, I haven't really used the Elmo as much as you would think. I bought a document camera that I have attached to a flexible arm.
Right.
I mean, it's just a webcam that I attach to a flexible arm, attached to a tripod so that I can bend it right over my canvas.
Right.
And so because I can bring my charts up right by doing screen share, but I can then demo on an actual canvas so you can see me stitching with my webcam. And I think I taught my very first class virtually, not necessarily with Zoom, because the first one I did was just where what I did was I typed up every single thing that I say in a normal class.
Right.
And sent that along with my instructions and the kit to my students that were supposed to be in my class at NAN in mid-March last year. It was the first of the seminars that was shut down. We had to make the decision to not meet in person. And, but I mean, people had already signed up. I'd already bought, all the teachers had already bought supplies. The kits were almost ready. So we ran the class virtually. Now that was before I found out about Zoom. But by 2 months later, I was teaching with a combination of Zoom and still producing those lessons in written form, because people really like getting something concrete in their hand. And so what you get when I teach virtually is a combination now. I think that's the best. I usually like to start the class off with a Zoom meeting so that people can meet me, they can meet each other, I can demo anything that's going to come up right away that might be tricky.
Right.
But then they can work at home with their instruction booklet along with those additional instructions that really is literally everything I normally say in an in-person class. Now, a couple of my classes that I had this year wanted to run the class all on Zoom, just like a regular class, and they wanted me on there all day. They wanted to be on there all day. And that I don't feel that that's the best way, because, that requires, I don't mind, because it's what I would be doing anyway if I went to class and taught.
Right.
But a lot of people at home want to be able to just stitch more. If they're going to be home anyway, they'd rather be able to go do other things too. But I did run 2 different classes that way, and they seem to enjoy them. So I just tell people, I'll do whatever you want.
Yeah, I think we've all learned a lot this year. And I think that even when we get back to face, which is where we really want to be, right? We'll be using more technology so that people don't have to stand over you like that, and with all the germs and everything, right? So you'll be doing other things. So I think it's been a year of learning, and we're fortunate that you guys have agreed to work this way with us. So it's good.
Oh, I love it. So for once in a blue moon, I did a video of how to do that fabric applique. And that was something that you got as part of your class, was access to that video.
Cool.
Now, that wasn't live. I mean, it was live when I did it. I recorded it, and then I just saved the file and gave people access to it a couple of different ways. For A&G, when I taught it for A&G, they ran those programs through Groups.io, and they paid for their subscription to that. And so they had a large amount of data that you could download, and I could just place that file right in their files for my class to see. Now, then I taught it for another group after that, and it was also through Groups.io, but it was a free Groups.io, and the file was too big for that because it's a half an hour video.
Right.
So I sent it to people via Dropbox. So there's different ways that we can come up with for you all to see what you need to see. And I always offer when I teach now that if you want if you're having trouble with something and you need a private Zoom class not class, but where you want to just be one-on-one with me to have me show you something that you're struggling with, you can always set up a private Zoom. Yeah. I hope I don't get 50 of those requests at one time, but I'll try to accommodate whatever people need.
Well, very cool. Does anyone else have any questions for Toni? Come off mute.
I do.
Kathleen?
Toni, do you think that we will ever go back to strictly in-person teaching, or will we continue using the Zoom or IO or whatever platform?
I think I'll probably do some of both in the future. I mean, I can't wait to go back to a regular national EGA and A&G seminar. I mean, all the camaraderie that we have at those is just, and the regionals too, the regional seminars too, all of them. I mean, you just can't replace that. But I think adding virtual classes also brings the ability for more people to take classes. That's what I found this year, were people that had never been to a seminar that could take a class, and they were so excited to be able to do that. And then people that have gone to seminars can just maybe take more classes, because you can't afford to go to everything you want to go to sometimes, but a combination of both things is great.
I agree. I'm looking forward to more virtual classes, but I could never give up going in person.
Yeah.
I want to see my friends. I want to hug them. And I want to finger all the stuff at merchandise night.
Yes.
I'm right there with you.
You betcha.
I really hope that, the two seminars can go forward this fall. I'm keeping everything crossed.
Mhm.
We'll see.
We'll see. I'm looking forward to Chicago.
Yes,
That's my goal.
I agree. Me too. And I love Chicago. And of course, I love the idea of going back to Kansas City since I'm from there. So I'm really hoping. We'll see.
Does anyone else have a question?
The other thing I've done a lot of this year is lectures for groups, that just want something for a chapter meeting. I have some mini classes and I have a couple of lectures that I can do. And I've done quite a few of those, and that's been good for chapters that are struggling to find what to do for chapter meetings.
You have a list of them somewhere that we can look at?
Well, let's see, I think EGA National has produced a list actually, but mine is not that long. I mean, I can do any of my classes virtually. I have some classes that are short, like learning to do Choddy's plaid, or learning to I have a little Rhodes stitch project. But my lectures that I've done a lot of is the art that came out of the Japanese internment camps. In fact, I'm going to be doing that in February for EGA National.
Right.
But that is limited to 100 people. And so I've done that for a lot of chapters also. And then I have one called Additions to Stitching that just talks about other things you can do to your surface other than stitch on it. Like the things I've shown you tonight, like the foiling, the fabric applique, needle felting, all the different other types of things. And and then we talk a little bit about the newest threads that are out there. So those are the two lectures I've done the most this year. But then I had a Fiber Arts Guild contact me, and they at the last minute, whatever they were doing for October fell through, and they wanted to know if I could share some Halloween stitching with them. So I came up with a little Halloween program that was really fun. I had some photos of needlework pieces that are Halloween themed, my own and other people's. Other teachers let me use their photos too, along with Halloween lore. It was just a fun little half an hour talk. So those are the main 3 lectures I've done a lot of.
Oh, okay.
Toni, do you do mainly needlepoint, or am I correct? Do you do gold work also?
I have some pieces that are gold work, but I would say what I do the most of is canvas embroidery. That's how I like to put it, because
Okay.
I do every stitch I can think of and all the techniques I can think of, usually on canvas.
Okay.
But I have done a couple of gold work pieces, but they usually combine gold work with stitching. They're not pure gold work, I guess.
I remember at the retreat at Glenwood Springs, where you were one of the mentors, you demonstrated that gold foil to the class. That was such a really
Cool.
interesting technique. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Is that the same as the copper foil that you did?
Yes.
Okay.
I carry 7 different colors of that foil. So I demoed with the gold probably. The moon is done in copper. I also have red, blue, silver, purple, green, blue. I think I said blue twice. I think that's all the colors.
Okay.
You can get, there's hundreds of colors of that foil. However, you have to buy huge quantities of it. So I've kind of limited myself to 7.
It's a good number.
Tony,
Yes, Nancy.
I've never paid much attention. I want to talk about Blue Moon. And
Okay.
I guess I've never paid much attention to our moon. But now that I'm home all the time, I'm more aware of my surroundings. And when we did the Blue Moon pilot class, I thought, oh, this white ultra suede is so bright. Why did she make it so bright? Well, we had a blue moon month and a half, 2 months ago, and I saw this huge, bright light in the sky. And I said, Toni knew what she was doing.
Thank you, Nancy. Yep, it can be that bright. It really can.
Oh, yeah, it sure was this time.
I have to show you though. Let's see if I can find it real quick. So for the new piece, By the Light of the Silvery Moon, I told you I want it to be a wintry piece. And I was playing around on the internet and found these absolutely gorgeous silver, I think they're really pewter, but they look silver in color, moon buttons that I think I'm going to use. And it's really hard to see this, I know, but
Oh, pretty.
it's
Oh.
got texture to it. It has like a little sliver of the moon here. Anyway, they're really cool. I can't wait to use them.
That'll be lovely.
Oops.
Somebody,
I'm doing Joy's screen.
yeah, where's Joy at? Let's see. I think I can stop that. Yeah, I don't think I want to share, but see if I can do that and stop share, and that'll get us back to Toni. There we
Okay.
go.
That was very good. It's very impressive.
So for your moon series, Toni, are they going to be always a big full moon, or do you think maybe you're going to do like a crescent or something?
I don't know. I was thinking that By the Light of the Silvery Moon might be a crescent until I found those buttons. And then they were just like perfect for what I was thinking. So I won't rule it out, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay. How many more do you think? Well, I know you already talked about the silvery moon, the mermaid moon, and the moon over Miami. So we know we've got at least 3 more coming.
You never know. I get distracted sometimes, but those are possibilities.
Man in the Moon.
Man in the moon.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Yeah, that might be fun. See, sometimes it isn't like a whole idea. It's just like a word or a phrase that, triggers you to think, I got to do something about that.
Trudy,
Yes, ma'am.
this is Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Hi. I just wanted to say that not only does Toni have the latest in mechanical things that she can use and so forth, but she's always looking for new threads or new stitches or something that hasn't been in one of her pieces before that is new for people. And I just think that makes her things particularly exciting. So
Thank you.
can't wait to get to the next one, Toni.
Thanks. There are a couple of new threads coming out.
Oh, good.
And I think I can share one of them with you because I know for a fact that it's going to be in one of Kathy Reese's new designs. But I was talking to Sally at Rainbow Gallery, and there's a new thread. They're coming out with a new thread called that Silk Lame ribbon. You
Oh, I love
silk
silk.
lame ribbon braid, but this is going to be silk lame ribbon.
Hmm,
Ooh.
Oh,
That's
that could be interesting.
hot off the presses.
very cool. Good. I like that silk lame braid I've been using in the Klimt piece. It just works with really nice to work with. It does feel like it snags occasionally, but it just feels so nice.
Yes.
Cool. I had never heard of the painter's threads that you've got in that kit, and you said you had used them in a couple of the other kimonos. Those are really interesting threads. Do they have, all I've got in the kit is the ribbon and the gimp. Do they have, what else do they have?
They have so many things. You wouldn't believe it. They over dye a variety of things. The one in Starry Starry Night is a number 8 metallic braid. They over dye silk, stranded silk. They over dye strand silk pearl, cotton floss, cotton pearl. They just over dye everything. They even have embellishments that are over dyed, like buttons and little little crochet balls that have been over dyed. They just are dyeing. They just over dye everything. Now, the only thing I have to mention or caution about the painter's threads is the dye lots can change dramatically.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a really big risk to put it in a piece that you're going to have to keep ordering for. I couldn't resist in Klimt, and sort of felt the same way about Starry Starry Night. I did not put it in the O'Keeffe or any of my other pieces. The O'Keeffe, I can't even remember the color, but it just wasn't appropriate for what I was designing. But if you're gonna put it in one of your pieces, just make sure you buy enough to do whatever you want to do with it in one piece. Because I mean, I think I have it in another piece. I can't remember what one it is. Oh, I know. It's Autumn Three Ways, and it's used as part of a maple leaf. And the color that was in mine and the color that comes in today's dye lots it's a green. It's a variety of greens, but it changed dramatically. Now, because I combined it with another solid floss in my original piece, it has worked for me anyway, but I couldn't believe how much it had changed. So that's just a caution. Anytime you're working with some of these companies, the dye lots can always change, and especially with over dyes.
Do you think the manufacturers are getting caught back up? I know that there was, the shortage of not being able to get all the supplies for the kits and everything. Do you think all the thread fiber manufacturers are back to where they are?
No, it's still a problem. Right now, I'm struggling with getting some Splendor thread, and that's a very commonplace thread. It's not an unusual thread, but it does come from France. And their factories were shut down for quite a while. I don't know if they're open yet. And it's still a problem. Kreinik, I haven't had too much trouble getting stuff from Kreinik, but they are behind. You have to give them lots of notice. I usually like to order supplies 6 weeks prior to a class. That's what I put in my contracts, that I want, numbers 6 weeks ahead, so I can order right then. And then they, that gives some companies will send them out the next day, and some companies want several weeks. And then you have to have time to kit. Right. But right now I've been changing that with most of my groups to have 8 weeks. And I still am having some issues. So, Floche is in several of my pieces. That's another, comes from France, and it's a problem. For a while there, all the countries, I mean, no matter where they came, it was a problem. But it seems like this week, the problem is with France. So.
Okay. Anybody else?
Tony, I have one more. How do you stay current with all the threads and the new things? Like,
Well, this year it's been difficult. Normally, my goal is anytime I travel to teach anywhere, I want to go, see. I want to go into the shops that are in the area. At at seminar, I want to go. Hopefully, there's a shop, or I usually talk to the companies. Like I have a lot of conversations with Rainbow Gallery, Fleur, Krynick, what's coming up, what's new. I haven't been to market yet, but I might get to that. I would love to be able to go to market once a year at least. But I usually do it by talking to people right now. And just being open to new things.
right.
Internet, especially other areas, in the knitting world, in the weaving world, just any place I can find something new.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? I don't see any hands waving. So I think we're done. Thank you so much, Toni, for your time tonight and for sharing with your designs and sharing with us. I really
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's been fun. It's a good way to kick off the year. So
Thank you, Toni and Trudy. Oh.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you so much, Trudy. Thank you, Toni.
Thanks, Toni and Trudy.
Thanks, Toni.
Everybody have a good evening.
Bye.
It was great.
I know.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.